Greetings. It is Monday, May the 4th, in the rather eventful and soon-to-be historic year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Monday Morning Report. Well, before I go into world and national events, I would like to mention something about a certain individual who is listed as critical condition at the hospital in Florida today, and that is former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. In spite of all the political turmoil and accusations and all sorts of controversy over the last few years, he took a sewer, which was New York City in the 1970s, and brought it back from the edge of death. And it was because, well, we all learned that the only thing more ruthless than an Italian gangster is an Italian mayor, and he was good at it. You know, he was a tough SOB, as they say, but he cleaned up the town. He got rid of the bad guys. He had a police force that was very proactive at preventing crime. I remember visiting Times Square many years after I had first visited it in the 1970s and was shocked that it was a tourist attraction. A tourist attraction. That kind of dates me, doesn't it? But he's in a hospital now in critical condition. He wasn't feeling well. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer many years ago, and what's been going on with him biologically is not my knowledge and not my business, but we all should wish him well, because it's American politicians like that that go beyond being politicians and are real leaders. My best wishes, Mr. Giuliani, and may you pull out of this controversy as well. Okay, now, what's going on? Everyone's talking about Iran and high gas prices. Yeah, well, that's not unexpected, considering the U.S. probably doesn't get a single drop of oil through the Straits of Hormuz, and you're dealing with market speculation and all those guys that make money in futures and what have you. Well, that's what it is right now until we do a complete reboot of our civilization, which may be coming at some point anyways. We're going to have to put up with such nonsense. The mainstream media, something I used to serve in honorably back in the 20th century, yes, that far back, is not just a joke, but it's a lying joke. Let me fill you in. Basically, Iran has already been destroyed. Government has already been obliterated. The mullahs are never coming back into power. You know, those funny guys screaming about martyrdom with the, not really screaming much of the time, but wearing the turbans and talking about dying for Allah and all the other nonsense out there. Well, they're not going to be coming back to power in that country anytime soon, probably never. It's currently being run by a military junta, a sort of circular dictatorship that's fighting within itself, made up of extremely young men. I've been doing some checking and seeing some reliable reports, and most of the people that the Israelis are now assassinating are pretty young. Some cases they're 20s or 30s. These are people that are now in charge, and that's a culture where you have to have gray hair to be in charge, and they pretty much have killed off all the gray hairs. Iran's already been militarily obliterated. Yes, it might have a few punches left in it, but the U.S. now has total control over what the future of that country is going to be like. A smoldering pile of ruin, something taken over by another government, probably Reza Pahlavi's, the Crown Prince, taking over, which would be, I think, ideal. But when Iran came out with a 30-day ultimatum, honestly, folks, that would be like Adolf Hitler sitting in his bunker in late April of 1945, trying to dictate terms to the Allied forces, or the Russians especially, saying, well, if you don't agree to a ceasefire, we're going to really let it rip. It's that ridiculous. Except in the case of National Socialist Germany, the bunkers were still intact. I don't know if there's any bunkers left intact in Iran. Most of them probably been blown up. No, the Straits of Hormuz, what's exactly going on there is not, of course, known. Anybody who says they think they know what's going on, they can't be certain. But one thing that seems to be the strategy is to strangulate the country's economy, okay, or its ability to make money. 50 excuse me, not 50, $500 million a day in revenue is being lost to this shell of a country now. And that and also a lot of food isn't coming in. So, well, what's going on domestically? Now, if you check with the diaspora, the Iranian services overseas, who are pretty well plugged in, they still have telephone service, something called the Eternal Guard is now fighting in the streets against the Islamic Guard. And it seems to be growing. I don't have any. I've seen video that's been brought out, and they've been able to get out. But the Iranian people are starting to rise up. The military was expected to, according to some of my sources. It hasn't yet. Maybe it's waiting. Maybe it's not sure. Maybe they have some hemming and hawing to do. But I'll tell you what, if the United States wants to force unconditional surrender on Iran, that's what they're going to get. And frankly, I think the U.S. is due at least one unconditional surrender since World War II. I think it's long overdue. Again, the trick in this case is not to hurt the Iranian people, just to get rid of the regime. And I know, everyone was saying this is just to get rid of nuclear weapons. Yeah, just like the Civil War was just to preserve the Union, right? Well, it might have officially started that way, but eventually it ended up as basically eradicating slavery. The same thing here. It might have started off as getting rid of a threat of nuclear weapons being deployed by a nation run by madmen. But no, that's designed to get rid of the Islamic fundamentalist regime. Islamic Republic are two words that should never again be made to follow each other in any sentence. It's done nothing but harm to the world. For those of you who are too young, before 1979, you didn't have any of this crazy stuff. Oh, yes, you had Palestinians being upset with the Israelis, of course, and you had nationalism. It was nationalism, but it was not religious-based. You had Christians in Syria. You had Christians in Iran. You had, in fact, Lebanon was a Christian country. For you out there who are Christian, you're not really big on all the persecution that's happened out there with your fellow followers of Christ, have you? I wonder why. The fundamental thing that we have to know is that the U.S. cannot afford to leave this half done. And I know everyone's talking about the midterm elections and everything like that, but sometimes the call of history goes beyond petty politics. I predict, and this is just a prediction, I think it'll be a golden age for that part of the world because everyone's sick of the insanity. At some point, insanity kind of wears thin and people want to go back to just having decent lives, whether they're in the Middle East, the United States, Europe. Well, that's another question there. Okay, back to the United States. We had an interesting visit with King Charles III and his wife, or his queen. Yeah, I thought Diana was a wonderful lady, and sad that when she went in 1999. But he came to Washington and had a very interesting state visit. One thing I have to hand it to the people that wrote his speeches, they were quite witty, especially the remarks about the ballroom. The assassination attempt, of course, on Donald Trump by the California leftist, that's pushing for the ballroom. And again, folks, don't gargle at the fountain of knowledge, drink from it. That ballroom has been needed for more than a century, almost a century and a half. It really has. So please stop just, nitpicking here. It's needed. It's always been needed. Anybody who has been to state dinners on the White House grounds when they use tents and it rains, that's another thing. But anyways, he was here, and it was an interesting time. He went to Front Royal, which most people have probably never heard of. I've been there many times, and it's a regular place I stop at in my travels around Virginia. And I'm kind of wondering, I was wondering why he went there. I mean, there's not really much there. There's a Rural King, which is like a Walmart for farmers. There's a couple of good restaurants, great ice cream place there, entrance to Shenandoah National Park. but it's basically small town America. And then I found out later that's why he went. He wanted to go to small town America, where they have parades with, cheerleaders and fire engines and all that old style stuff. And apparently he had a lot of fun, which is what small town America was built on. So congratulations to Front Royal. It's the most excitement you've had since the Civil War, when there was a battle fought there. And it's the Confederates won that battle, by the way. Oh, there's also a small Civil War museum there, which is quite interesting. You might want to check it out when you go through there. Good ice cream, Front Royal. Check it out. If it was good enough for King Charles III, should be good enough for any American. In Virginia, this is something more close to home. There's more hemming and hawing about all the anger over the reapportionment going on. And this is going to go into bad places because Virginians are very deeply rooted people. Now, I'm a transplant. I came here, really not that many years ago comparatively. I certainly haven't been here for many generations, but there are people who have deep roots in Virginia, and they're not going to give up those roots very easily. They're not going to say that they can't own guns. You're not going to tell them they can't do this or can't do that. They're very independent, very proud people, and they have reason to be. Virginia is the oldest government in the Western Hemisphere of planet Earth, and so many things about it are, frankly, quite great. The government especially. I mean, the Department of Transportation, how many Americans look forward to going to the DMV? I do. On my driver's license, it doesn't say operator number, it says customer number. Oh my goodness, the people that run the Department of Motor Vehicles in Virginia are just wonderful. You call up the information line, guess what? You get a human who's in Virginia and not Manila or Mumbai. I mean, it's quite nice. The idea of leaving all that, some of us would have a hard time. But I predict you're going to see a lot of, you already are seeing legal action when it comes to some of the gun stuff going on. The lady who runs the state now, cursed be her name, which I will not mention, she has already proven to be the most unpopular governor in history, and she's only been in office a few months. I don't know, maybe at the CIA they teach you it's okay to force your will on populations or overthrow governments or all sorts of nasty stuff. Maybe they have classes on it, I don't know, and she's trying to apply what she learned there to her new job. But generally, as I say, insanity does have a way of flipping back. There's many cases in history where you think that nothing is going to get better, and then suddenly there's like the cloud that lifts over the illogic going on, and people start waking up for real, saying, wow, what are we putting up with this nonsense for? And they put it away. Which leads me to what I'm going to close you with today, and this is why people hate Donald Trump. Why? Now, to be fair, a lot of people in New York talk like him, act like him. Does he have an ego? Oh, boy, does he ever. So that new gold statue at his golf course down in Florida, that's not something you'd see the Dalai Lama do for sure, but he's not the Dalai Lama. He's a guy who I can understand what he's trying to accomplish. Is he somebody I'd probably get along with if I met him? I don't know. But I know people who have met him. I never have, and they said he was actually quite a pleasant person. He's trying to roll back all the insanity that's been visited on the United States over the last several decades in only a couple of years, or who knows how long he has. And that could probably be, there's two types of people in this country, Americans and Democrats. To quote the late Ronald Reagan, and I think if he was around today, although he's probably spinning at about 2,000 RPM in his grave right now, he would agree with that. I mean, the Republicans are pretty much stupid and bad, but the Democrats are pure evil at this point. There has to be something that's going to give. But Trump is, why do people hate him so much? And, everybody who is a rabid Trump hater that I've met, without exception, a rabid one. I don't mean someone that just dislikes him. I mean a lot of things about him to dislike. I'm talking about someone who stays up at night just thinking about, I hate him, having a Trump doll and putting pins in it or something. No, what these people are almost, I've not seen anything different, is someone who's mentally ill in some capacity or has some mental issue. Someone who hates themselves so much or dislikes something about themselves so much that they're going to project it on something or someone. And Trump is an easy target. Let's put it that way. Someone who has a big ego is very successful, especially if you're a man. This guy has had his choice of women over the years. Let's put it that way. And jealousy mixed with self-hatred leads to projection on somebody. And he's very, very accessible to project on. Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. It really is. It's not a joke. And I think it's more tied to, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I think it is tied to self-loathing. Someone who has serious problems in their lives, they want to blame them on someone else. You've heard that in history before, you know? Oh, we have all these problems. Let's blame it on something or someone else. Then it takes the responsibility off you, and you can feel better, and you don't have to do anything. You can just sit there and wallow while sitting on the ground feeling sorry for yourself. Well, I have some news for you people out there that do. Nobody cares if you feel sorry for yourself. All right. You know, some years ago, a couple of years ago, when he was running for office again, he made a speech which I thought was quite to the point and quite, well, you wouldn't really object to it if you were a reasonable person. And I sent the link to this person, and I said, could you just watch the first 5 minutes of this and tell me what he is saying? This is a person who had or still has Trump derangement syndrome, and I said in my message, could you please watch the first 5 minutes by your watch, just look at the thing and count the minutes, and tell me what he says that you disagree with. And this person refused to watch. He said, I hate that person so much, I'm not going to look at it. Now, really, really think about that. And that's common. So it's not about Trump. It's not about policies, because I know people that claim they're liberals and they really aren't. It's about people's projection. He's a target for the psychologically troubled, and in some cases outright insane, that want to take their failures in life out on him. And I'll bet you this guy, who I will not name, who tried to kill him, and that's what happened at the Washington Hilton. That guy ran into that past the Secret Service all the way from California with the intent of killing Trump. I'll bet you that when it all comes out, this guy has failed miserably. He's a good student, just got a master's degree last year, but he's a failure as a human being, and decided, well, I'm going to take it out on him because he's responsible for everything being bad. Right? I'm sorry if that doesn't sit too well with so many people, but you know what? Is people have to stop worrying and also stop getting emotionally involved with people, individuals, or events that they have no hope of controlling or influencing. You have people who have ended marriages over Donald Trump because one person liked them, the other person didn't. Smashed families, destroyed homes, children traumatized for life that'll carry on for generations, all because people couldn't face their own problems and decided to dump them on the President of the United States. You tell me whether that's sane or not. So as we continue on into the spring and summer, and hopefully the warm weather will make people warmer in general, don't worry about something you have no control over. Be observant, influence things where you can, but as the people in Virginia have found out, that if you just are complacent for way too long, things are going to get real bad. And just like they say with socialism, you vote your way into it, but you got to fight your way out of it. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies. And remember, there's different levels of enemies. Some are good, some are not so bad, and some shouldn't be enemies. But the ones that are enemies, no mercy. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. And please consider a paid subscription. Please. It keeps the lights on figuratively, literally, and keeps the gas tank full. And we know how hard that can be these days. Be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember Clown World, the deep state, and all those who promote mental illness over mental health must be destroyed. Good day.